Alrighty. Welcome to the show, dude. That was fun. It's always fun hanging out with engineers. Even though it's not work,
I know.
It feels like play.
Mm-hmm.
Or rather, even though it's work,
it
feels like play.
Yeah.
That was the one thing that I like about hanging out with you guys.
Well, it's like, we have a lot of passion for what we do, right?
Yeah.
So the element of working in the studio, there's a vibe where you're in the moment, right? Very present, but you're also able to geek out at the same time. And so then when we're just hanging out,
right,
it's already natural to us to just geek out about, whether it's gear, whether it's, previous experiences or things of that nature. Yeah. I understand.
And I wonder if it's like something to do with the fact that not a lot of people are in this field, and not a lot of people who are in this field can relate to the stuff that, studio engineers go through or freelancers go through.
And the thing is, I feel like there are a lot of people in music.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when you say that, you're talking very specifically in this context.
Yeah.
Right? Of being in a recording facility.
Right.
And actively doing the job.
Yeah.
That is something that a lot of people don't get to do.
Yeah.
And, I had like many internships where I had different exposures to different types of audio, but each one was very different, from recording to, something like mastering to then, broadcast or post. They're all very different.
Mm-hmm.
Some are more suit and tie oriented, some are more laid back and casual.
Yeah.
Right? So, yeah, it's interesting. And I find that a lot of people are in music because it's accessible now.
Mm-hmm.
But the professional level of audio is a smaller circle, for sure.
Yeah.
And it's kind of feels like, I don't mean to be a little depressing, it feels like a dying breed in a sense, because it's like there's so many studios that were here in New York that did go away, right? And
man.
I feel as though we have more of a duty now that things are becoming more home-oriented to elevate the quality of our production at home, right? That's why we do what we do at SAE. Right? That's what we do and teach and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's just quite interesting when you say that, because I know what you mean too. It's just...
It also takes like a certain personality to like listen to a snare 5,000 times to get it right. Like you either love it or you're just not that guy.
Yeah.
Tweaking knobs and stuff. It's not for everybody.
Yeah. I learned to do more tuning than anything.
Right up front.
Yeah. Well, because the good thing I was a drummer.
You're still listening to a snare a couple of times while you tune it. That is a brutal job to tune. I don't know how you do it.
It's hard to tune. Getting into tuning requires a lot of patience, because it's very... it's almost like intonation on a guitar.
Yeah.
It's the same thing.
Yeah.
It's actually less about string tuning than it is the actual intonation.
Yeah.
So that's what drum tuning is. You're really paying attention to that balance.
Yeah.
Because your string is the note of the head, but the balance between all the lugs is that intonation.
Yeah.
So that's where, if you get that right, then you start really elevating your drum tuning.
And one
skills,
affects all. It's
man.
Fucking
it's like a seesaw.
Yes.
You do one and then you got to do the other. And actually, the way I learned it was through a drummer called Dave Weckl.
Dude, one of the best.
Dave Weckl had a drumming
God.
video of just tuning, and I learned that technique. Did it a lot.
Damn.
And that's where I really went and nosedived into it.
And you're primarily a drummer.
Yes.
That's where you started this whole journey.
Yeah, actually, no. I started my journey on organ. Organ. 7th grade.
Wow.
Started in 7th grade. Played a lot of organ at that time, and it ended up becoming something that I enjoyed more for composition later on. Because when I got into high school, I was more of an art major.
Yeah.
And I was just still experimenting with music.
Right.
But when I was like 16, 15, I was in the middle of trying to make a video game.
Wow.
Back in Windows XP. And I had a thing called RPG Maker. It was just this old program. And it was like 2D video game stuff. And I was making a knockoff of Zelda.
Dude.
And I was just like a huge Zelda fan.
Yeah.
Still am.
Yeah.
And I would play that RPG Maker XP program, and then I would figure out, I was like, all right, I need to do this here. I learned a bit about, coding there, but I realized that at some point it was kind of lame that I had no original music, but I had all these original characters and original artwork for it. And I was like, I should probably try something.
Yeah.
And then I started developing that side of me. I got into transcribing Zelda music because it was a Zelda game.
Nice.
Joined online forums to do that.
Yeah.
And then Guitar Hero and Rock Band came out.
Yeah.
And when Rock Band came out, that's when I was like, I want to play drums. And my dad was a drummer, but he was never one to force it. He was just kind of like, my dad was like, he was already very seasoned.
Yeah.
But he was like, if I was going to do drums, he wanted me to do it because I wanted to do it.
Right.
I respect him for that because it takes a lot of patience to just allow that to happen.
Yeah.
My mom...
You were like 16, 17 by this point.
Yeah. Yeah, my mom was a little bit more forthright with doing art.
Yeah.
So I was doing art at a very early age. And she just kept kind of pushing me to do more of that. And yeah, I ended up deciding that, by the time I got to college, I was like, I like art, but I want to do music. And my sensibilities of art still linger. You've heard my music now, and it's very much well intertwined with visual narrative. Yeah. So it's something I'm very familiar with.
Homeric, right?
Yes.
The name of your project. Yeah, that's
Thank
exciting.
You.
It's a massive thing.
It is. It really is.
It's a world in and of itself.
Yeah.
It's pretty dope. Dude.
I pay tribute to Zelda for that.
That's fucking cool, man. So this is around the time, college is when you get into engineering?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. I was going to go to Berkeley.
No way.
And then I said, I got in, couldn't afford it, and I said, all right, well, if I'm going to go to a community college, it's the dumbest reason ever, but I was like, I'm not going to waste my time on just learning music. Yeah. I'm going to put another skill to that.
Oh,
that's And then I got into music production.
It's not stupid. That's actually...
It was stupid when I look back at it, because it's like, I downplayed community college for me because that was the only college I got into was Berkeley.
Yeah.
Not even any of the CUNY colleges wanted me.
Really?
Yeah, because I flunked so many of my classes.
Jeez.
End of high school. Yeah, I was like total senioritis. I was like, I'm gonna keep playing drums, and that was kind of like my attitude going out of high school, and so into college it became more of a trying to figure out how I can best take advantage of my situation because I felt like I had to go to Berkeley.
Yeah.
And that was the wrong mindset. Because I actually learned way more than I thought I ever would starting at a community college.
Really?
And that was Queensboro. Yeah.
Wow.
Queensboro
Wasn't Nakora do Queensboro? Somebody was saying that yesterday's guy?
Yeah.
He was doing that too. Or he was thinking of going.
Queensboro's great. Queensboro's great. I was a technician there for a couple of years too. I ended up, after graduation, and I went into City College in CUNY.
Yeah.
I ended up coming back to Queensboro and working as a technician for the school. I installed like a bunch of stuff in there, and now I'm seeing the residual effects of my work where, the SSL that I installed is being used all the time.
Nice.
The Dolby Atmos stuff is being used all the time, and I see that it gives me like, a rewarding feeling for that.
For sure, dude. For sure.
It's your lasting impact on something that took care of you,
Yeah.
So I feel like part of me is there helping still take care of that school. And I'm glad that everything turned out the way it did. Couldn't have been more grateful, and especially for all those professors too. That goes for City College too. They took whatever I learned in Queensborough and just elevated it.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a good experience for me. I went a more academic route with my engineering, but it was not to forego, any of my experience outside of school. I just took a liking to the academics. I liked...
Well, what do you mean by that? Like...
all the technicals.
Really?
Yeah. That's what really triggered me into really liking engineering.
Really? The technical side?
Mm-hmm.
That's so fascinating, because it's usually the opposite.
Yeah. Well, that's why I became a tech at the school. And I was just like... I was very... because I was already... computer oriented with myself, like as growing up as a kid, total geek from Windows 98, and my first internship wasn't even a studio at all. It was a workshop at a tech office for IT.
Oh wow.
And I was learning how to build computers and all this kind of stuff, so the technician was already in me.
Yeah.
And it was further making me geek out with all the gear in the studio. And figuring out routing, and figuring out networking, and figuring out, what does this do to this sound, and how come, all these complex, sessions, why they're so cool, under the hood.
Yeah, yeah.
So, like, you'll find me, like, hanging out with Anton from, our studios, and it's just like, I'm just kind of always around technicians.
Yeah.
Like, that's kind of always been my thing, So
that's amazing. Yeah, kind of going back to what we were saying, like audio guys just like to hang out and talk audio, which is why I never usually worry about setting these things up, because it's like I know once we're in the same room, this audio is gonna spool out of us, or pool out of us, or rush out of us, or something.
Yeah, yeah.
Dude, that's awesome. So after college is when you started interning at studios?
No, I was interning probably second year.
Okay.
Yeah.
What was the first internship?
It was actually working live recording.
Oh, no way.
Live recording orchestras.
He's pretty good.
Yeah. Guy named Robert Anderson. Really awesome dude. Has a nickname at the college called the Human Algorithm. Because he's just so oriented.
Really?
Loved that about him, because he really was particular. Great set of microphones, great set of pre's, and but efficient. He knew what it meant to understand space and acoustics in a way that was a little bit more taking the technical and creating a more instinctual approach about that. Like, he had already so much in his experience that all that absorbed in his approach.
Yeah.
So after some time you're already familiar with how to go about recording,
right?
And it just felt like this guy could read a room in a matter of seconds and understand what he had to do.
Wow.
It was amazing. It was amazing. And so I learned from him a lot of things, a lot of tools of the trade, and from that I segued into a couple of other friends of his. This audio industry is also no different than music. It's networking.
Yeah.
I always say to my students, it's a industry of people. And one thing kind of led to another. I met a friend of a friend, friend of a friend, friend of a friend, and before you know it, I was ending up working on gigs like Good Morning America, and it's like that was 2017. Down the road of just starting from 2011.
From 2011. So 2011 is when you were doing the live.
That's when I first started really doing gigs.
Wow. And you were like his assistant.
It was like an assistant intern kind of thing, yeah.
Yeah.
He would actually pay me though.
Oh, that's awesome.
He was really good about that.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
And you would do it around New York?
Yeah.
Dude.
Yeah, visiting churches.
Oh,
it was like
yeah, of course.
Classical recordings.
Yes. Where else are you going to do classical recording?
Yeah.
Church, come on, dude.
Unless it's a big room like here,
right.
Yeah. And that was a lot of it. Yeah. Had a great time.
So from that, did you get into studio stuff?
I was always trying to do studio stuff. My first studio internship, I think, was 2012. And that was a place called Harvest Works.
Oh, yeah.
Down in Soho.
Okay.
And Harvest Works is kind of like a artist installation type of studio. It's called, what is it? Public Access Synthesizer Studio. Harvest Work Pass Studios. Yeah, so it was supposed to be a thing where, like, artists, not like musical artists, but like just like artists in general.
Yeah.
People who wanted to have like a sound element to their installation, their gallery.
Yeah.
They would come and they would hire engineers to help make these sort of like sound design sort of more than 5.1.
Right.
You know,
yeah,
it would be
I've seen
like,
some of these.
what was it, like, I think one of them was 10.2.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
like big surround sound.
Right,
stuff.
you kind of like have a room that's just surrounded by speakers and there's art and
yeah,
stuff.
and they would mess a lot with like Max MSP and all this stuff.
I think I've even been to some of these installations.
Yeah.
They're wild.
They're awesome, man.
Yeah.
They had interns there who were way smarter than I was. They were like from Michigan State learning freaking lasers and stuff like that. And they had a MakerBot and they were just like creating all these things. I'm like I just came here to like plug in a mic and like learn audio, and they're just like making all this other stuff. It was kind of, it was pretty awesome. It opened my eyes to like the creativity of people in the studio. That was a really good internship. I ended up also having to do a repair job because they knew I was like, oh yeah, I did like a technician internship when I was like young and built computers. It was like, great, we have this really old like Mac OS 8 computer. Can you like retrieve files over there from the SCSI drive? I'm like, sure. And I should have said no because that was a pain in the ass.
Really? Wait, this is
SCSI.
2012. Yeah.
Yeah.
I do remember some people were still using SCSI drives for a while, but that was way outdated by that point.
It's like, it's kind of really funny because SCSI is so old. The data that's flowing through literally drips out if you don't have a terminal at the end. You have to like plug up the other port. You have to terminate the port so it doesn't lose data. It's really, really funny.
How did you get the
you know, it was there in the computer, and I just had to basically try and boot it up and use ADAT to record it into a modern computer. That's how we did it. Yeah, just a lot of just playing audio files and just archiving. And I did that a lot at QCC too. We took a lot of like old analog DATs.
No way.
And I was in the middle of doing a big archival project. I never got to finish it. I wonder where we got up to. I forgot. It was a lot. I did a lot of those tapes. That
like archiving their
they're old,
sessions?
old like stuff from like the 80s.
Really?
Yeah. Maybe even older than that.
Just like student projects?
Student work from QCC.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That sounds
They were recording a lot of stuff for a long time.
I imagine, yeah. I wonder if somebody took the mantle and kind of started archiving it.
Well, I think they were certainly doing it already before I got there. But they got up to a certain point and I just did a whole lot more. So really on like my downtime, it was just matter of just letting it run and record.
Yeah.
And I got to use like the SSL a bit more and kind of learn it while I was working with that. That was fun. Dude. Yeah. It's just interesting, you know, because that's actually kind of a mastering job.
Yeah.
You know, if you think about it.
Yeah.
And so then, there's mastering in my career was at 2013.
So this is like, 1 year live, into studio work, into mastering.
Into mastering.
Perfect in a way.
Yeah.
Right?
I got obsessed about mastering.
Really?
I obsessed about mastering because it was just like something that I always asked questions of when I was in school.
Yeah.
Never got really the answers
Nobody
to it.
knows.
Nobody knows. They always call it voodoo. It's the dark art.
Yeah.
You know?
The dark art of mastering.
It's always something like that. And it's like, I want to understand why is it called the dark art, you know? And it's not so much of a dark art. It's just a matter of understanding finesse, you know? And that was all my obsession became, understanding. And I ended up walking out of Masterdisk as knowledgeable of what the workflow of some of the best mastering engineers there.
That's a great
And
place to learn.
That was amazing. Actually, Andy Vendette, right?
Andy Vendette
one of
is
the
another
old,
one.
one of the old mastering engineers at Masterdisk works here at Engine Room, and that was an awesome. He was an awesome teacher to me. He wasn't really a professor, but he was an awesome teacher while I was there.
Well, those mentors you pick up along the way at studios and like the live gig.
Yeah.
Dude, sometimes I know we're teachers, so this is weird to even say.
Yeah.
But like sometimes they're even better because it's like you're literally pushed into the deep end of like, hey, just has to work somehow. And I'm gonna show you how to do stuff. This is my process.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. There's just something about you can't recreate the experience of just being on the field.
Right.
And you can't recreate that in an educational environment.
No, yeah. That's why it's kind of like always difficult.
Yeah.
When you are explaining to somebody that, no matter what your credentials are, it doesn't matter when you're out there because they're going to judge you based upon your ethic, your immediate knowledge of how to handle a situation, and how well those fires and quickly how well those fires can be put out.
Troubleshooting.
Yeah.
It's like the basis of everything.
Which, one thing that really stuck with me, I think I went to some sort of event. It was something like an AES, but it was a small room. And one of the engineers who was there, I forgot his name, big guy in Massachusetts though, and he was saying the reason why he can go and do any console, any studio, doesn't matter which one it is, he can figure it out, within half an hour. It's because he understands signal flow so well.
What'd I tell you, motherfuckers? What'd I tell you? Didn't I say that's the basis of everything?
Yeah.
Everything is signal flow.
Signal flow, man.
Dude.
Signal flow.
It really is.
And if you want to get good at signal flow, I say go do live sound.
Aha, nice. Okay, how come?
Because you're doing it all the time.
Yes.
You're not having to get used to a certain patch bay. It's a new patch bay every day.
I see.
So
you're talking about live sound in the of being a part of a live sound production company, moving from venue to venue.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, I understand.
Yeah. No, that was one of the things that became my bread and butter for a long time. I think 2015.
Right, because if you're doing the patches in the same studio every single time, you already know.
Right.
Even without. Yeah, even without even knowing what signal flow is, you got to go to that hole, then to that hole. You might not even fully understand what does multi-track sends mean. What are you talking? Right.
Right.
But whereas in a live setting,
it's different.
It's a new
day.
Ah.
Today it's like, they'll have 24-track input, but then you got to figure out how's the routing of the outputs to this venue, how it's going to be different from this venue to the next venue.
Yeah.
Or what kind of monitoring situation.
Right.
Figuring that out on the fly. If you have, let's say you were called in last minute, some guy called out, you have to take over the reins. You got an input and output sheet, you got the data, but you have to be able to know how to put them together, right? And set that up within a time frame. Right? So there's that pressure, and that pressure gives a fire that allows one to tap into, I want to say it's kind of like a stream of consciousness as you're working. I don't know, my girlfriend gets upset at me sometimes. She's like, because you're in work mode. I'm like, you're right. Yeah, I do get into work mode because at a certain point when I know what's required of me to make something happen, it becomes like super focused. And it's like razor sharp, almost like crosshairs in my eyes.
Right. But that would make total sense. Yeah.
Well, it sharpens you.
Yeah.
Doing that kind of stuff, and then taking that a step further and doing something like broadcast, where millions of people are watching on television, a show where you have to be doing the patches.
Yeah.
And knowing that, and knowing if where something goes wrong, that's a lot of pressure.
That's a lot of pressure.
It's a lot of pressure. But it trained me really well. Trained me really well. So that was the best experience that I got for signal flow.
Broadcast
and live. Yeah.
Yeah.
Best way.
Yeah, there is something to be said about that pressure, right?
Yeah.
Like, and it happens all the time in these studio environments too.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's not even the pressure of where the signal is,
yeah.
but the pressure from the people around you.
Right.
You know, the clients that come in. You know, we were just talking before this about the type of clients that we no longer have to deal with, fortunately.
Yeah. Or, well, really, I think one of the things that we also mentioned was it's not just the technical, but the ability to flow, right? And tapping into that flow is difficult because you don't know who you're going to get, right? And you have to be able to sometimes be a person who can mediate between two people, right? Somebody, you know, you got drama from one band member to another band member, and it's like, how are you going to get them to work together? You know, so in a situation, either you as the engineer or producer, if there's not another producer here, you have to either play the role of, okay, everybody up and at it, you know, let's not look at this as a chill time, we're going to work. Or if they've got it together, you can take a little bit more of a backseat role and kind of just let it happen, right? You know, because some bands come in really prepared, right? So you don't want to get in the way of that.
Right.
You want to make it more of what they are.
Yeah.
But then if you come to a situation where people might not be prepared, or there's a situation where people have a, you know, some sort of self-pressure, you know, they're trying to, maybe this is their first studio session, right? And you got to be that person who gives them the welcoming package. That's a whole nother thing, you know? And you have to be that translator of emotion to that individual and say, hey, like, I'm feeling you out. We're good. You know, I'll take care of you if we work together. And, you know, and that's sometimes doesn't always work out.
Right, of course.
You know, because, you know, we're people. That's it.
But just like you know, nailing signal flow by being in those new environments every day.
Yeah.
You know, when you're working at a professional studio or even in a live venue or a live setting, every day is new people. And you have to learn how to navigate many, many different types of people. And hopefully that's a skill. I think it is a skill that you can develop if you want to. If you understand that being an audio engineer is not about hitting 3 and sitting around and spitting bars and shit. It's like, there's so much more to this than people, I think. Now, I don't know, I don't know, like, if this isn't conveyed enough, but, like, I have had many interns over the years, like, say, like, well, it's not my job to figure out what they're... And it's like, no, it kind of is. You know what I mean? Where do you think that comes from?
Being an intern is a weird thing. You know why? Because you don't know your place yet. You're still trying to figure that out. And what's inherently obvious to us as studio etiquette is not inherently obvious to them. The whole idea of common sense ain't so uncommon, it's the same thing. Right? So I think that people who come into studios and maybe they feel a sense of entitlement just don't understand what their role is. And I always looked at it as your role as an intern is just to be a team player. That's literally all it is. It doesn't matter that you're supposed to be cleaning up bathroom stalls. It doesn't matter that you're supposed to be making coffee in the morning. The purpose of that is for you to benefit the studio as a whole, to make the studio look good for the client. It's not about you. It's about them, right? So how do we serve them best? We create a presentation that allows them to feel comfortable. And that was something that I didn't really get in the beginning, but I understood a lot later on.
Really? That was difficult?
For me, I was much more of a talky interrupt somebody kind of way. And I got that because I used to do a lot of things for my family and in a technical way. So like I knew what, for example, like my dad would always say, Kenny, can you print this out for me? You know, and I'd be like, yeah, but like I could show you how to do it. And he was just like, you're the tech guy, just do it. You know, or I would like, I knew what he was trying to say about something technical, and I would always say, finish the sentences. And it took a very specific internship for me, and it wasn't supposed to be an internship, but I accepted the internship. That I was supposed to learn. Well, that's where I learned how to really understand how to listen.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, how did you learn?
It was just a matter of humility. I was in the middle of trying to understand what was asked of me, but I remember the guy. His name was Steve. He told me, you know, I interrupted him. He goes like, "Okay." He's like, "You know what I'm gonna say. So what am I gonna say?" And I said, "I don't know." He was like, "Shut the fuck up then."
Yeah.
You know, and let me finish.
Right.
And I remember that feeling of, okay, knowing your space, knowing your place. Of not to say that I was lowlier than him, but it was understanding what I needed to do in that moment was not to have so much output. I need more input. Yeah. And that was a big turning point for me. And that whole internship was a wild ride. It really was. I learned so much, and it was unfortunate the way it ended. But I do still have a lot of gratitude for what I walked away with. And I think that's something that most people should think about whenever they get into any sort of internship is, you know, even if you didn't get the job, which is a lot of people, what did you walk away with? You know, like what could you say that it was worth your time being there? You know, and those kinds of reflections, because then you can actually look back and find the golden nuggets that actually help you move forward in what was supposed to steer you in the right direction. Some people don't like to look at that stuff. Some people like to just say, "Oh, you know, that was a waste of time. I don't like that place." You know, but then they overlook some of the reasons or the little things that people were trying to do to just nudge them in the right lane, you know.
Like the dude telling you, "Hey, shut up."
Yeah, exactly.
Like somebody else might have taken it the wrong way. Like, the fuck is this dude?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
And you know, it's a blow to ego. That's why.
Yeah.
Because you're not thinking about you know, you're trying to as an intern, you're trying to grow in this space, but sometimes it's kind of conflicting because it's like the moment of growth happens when you don't want it to. That's the moment of growth. Because it's resistance. And it's understanding when that resistance is there and to just like let it go.
Yeah.
Because is it because of your ego? Or is it really something that you really need to look at? And for me, I sucked it in. I was like, you know, because that's what I do for a lot of my problems. I internalize my problems. And then I sucked it in. I was like, I reflected it later on. And I understood. I understood why he said that.
Yeah.
And so it was a different outlook for me after that. Yeah, more input, less output.
Right. That's fascinating, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you know, so many interns come in and out of these kinds of studios. So many. To the point where like I have friends like Danny is one of them, Lee is one of them. Like they don't bother learning intern names. They're like, if I see you in a month, maybe then I'll ask what your name is. Because it's like,
wow,
the turnaround is ridiculous.
Wow.
And I think a lot of it has to do with this whole like, maybe it's an ego thing, maybe it's an entitlement thing, But it is also very difficult to understand because, like, you just want to make music and you just want to grow and you just want to be a good engineer, right? And sometimes you might be over-eager, right? Mm-hmm. And it's difficult to be that person to self-reflect for a moment.
And have restraint.
And have restraint in a tense situation like that. Mm-hmm. And be like, well, hold on. Is it, like, yeah, I think you phrased it perfectly. It's like, is this me? Or is there a bigger picture here?
Right.
Right.
Yeah. And the best engineers are the best team players. They are. Because they understand. They understand it's not about them. Yeah. It's not about... Also, another great concept is it's not about, an engineer putting his sound to a record.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I know where this is going.
It's about making them more what they are. Yeah. The artist. Yeah. Bringing out the artist.
Yes.
That's what engineering should be.
I am such a believer of this.
Yeah.
Hardcore. Yeah. And I know there are engineers, very successful engineers out there that do the opposite.
Yeah.
Just like, no, this is my sound, and if you want to...
Which is another philosophy, too.
Yes.
It's much. like if you want to go a more technical aspect of that, right? Yeah. Why should I get a power amplifier that has the ability to blow out my speakers? Well, because you know why? It has a lowered noise floor. Lower noise floor, it will never clip.
Yeah.
But if I go have a power amplifier that can't blow out my speaker, I know it will distort, but I know my speakers will always be in good shape. It's two sides of the same coin, right? Two different philosophies. And I am more of the idea of bringing an artist out than me trying to direct. Some people have success with directing, and some artists need that.
Yeah. Oh, that's fair. That's a good point.
You get a really, really top-notch engineer who really knows what he's doing, been in the game for a long time. He knows what it needs to sound like for what they're looking for.
Yeah.
That's another direction. But then the other side of that is like the artist who already knows what they want.
Yeah.
And how can you make it more of that?
So it really is just fitting into the slot, whether it's personality-wise, when to dial it back, when to, say something.
Yeah.
Or being the hammer, like, we gotta work, guys, or you guys are working, so I'm just gonna let you do your thing. It's really fitting into the slot.
Many hats.
Yeah.
It's so true. Gosh. And I feel in my career that's one of the real reasons that I circled back, because I started as an artist, right? And I circled back into doing art again.
Yes.
Because that was, for me, a necessary journey to understand my role and my contribution and what I was able to accomplish. So it served me in a technical manner because, when I work on my own music, there's no limits, right? Complete freedom, right? Not being in the position of like, how can I get that sound? Like, I know the technical way of achieving the sounds that I want.
Right.
But the freedom to be able to do it on my own time, to take advantage of the technology today that we have, because it's actually amazing what we can do today. I mean, like, we have Universal Audio or Antelope and all these different kinds of companies that are creating digital recreations of all the things that we have in the studio, and it's just amazing to the degree of quality that we can get at home. So having that ability, and now with full surround sound that's Dolby Atmos and 360, and it's just like, it's endless. You can do nowadays, and you can even do it binaurally. You don't even need all the speakers. You can just put a pair of headphones on.
Right.
So you almost start asking yourself, like what would be stopping somebody from really learning how to do all of this? And I think for me, I think it's just time. I think it's the amount of dedication, the willingness to do the work, and I see it all the time with my own students. There's a certain level of dedication to the craft,
Yeah.
And you know, everybody's got their own path.
Sure.
You know, I will always, you know, remember all the conversations that I have with my students, and some of them, you know, they'll prioritize other things over the schoolwork, and you know, I'm not going to knock that.
Right.
And the reason is because it's like we're all trying to do our thing. We're all trying to make our lives in music that much more fulfilling.
Yeah.
And you know, somebody who's gonna go spend an entire month away at like a festival because that's, or go to California because they have an opportunity, like I totally get that.
Right. Right.
You know, that's nothing to do with you know, their lack of ambition.
Mm-hmm.
People are ambitious for their own reasons.
Yeah.
And not everybody fits into the same peg.
Right.
You know, so they just got to find their peg. You know, they just do what they got to do to keep moving forward. My journey will be different than your journey.
And that's what it is, right? There's so many different paths you can take in
Yeah.
the field of audio and music.
Yeah.
I think the most common one that people think of when we think about studio or engineer
Mm-hmm.
is you go intern at a studio, you climb up the ranks, and then you freelance, and that's that.
Right.
But there's so many different things you can do. We
Yeah.
just talked about live sound.
Yeah.
We talked about broadcast.
Yeah.
Right? A lot of
Yeah.
people don't know that. Or maybe it's not that they don't know it, it's just that they are just unaware that there's so many ways to get to this goal or this achievement.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's a different answer for everybody.
Yeah.
You
And
know?
they just have to figure it out on their own.
Yeah, what do you want out of this?
Yeah.
You know, that's just kind of, at the end of the day, what they got to figure out.
Yeah. I am curious though, like, did you have like certain sessions that really tested you as like an engineer? Not even from a technical aspect, maybe from a technical aspect, but just all these things that we talked about being an engineer, the roles and the hats you have to wear. Do you remember sessions that were just like, man?
Yeah. Yeah. It was with Dennis Chambers. Wonderful drummer.
Nice.
Like one of the best drummers out there, on the level of a Weckl or something like
Nice.
that. One of my idols, actually.
Nice.
And I remember what we were doing. We were in Washington, D.C., that area. We were doing a remote recording broadcast type of thing. We were recording for DPA microphones, and DPA
Nice.
microphones was doing a partnership with PBS on binaural sound and surround sound concept. It was actually for DTS was also involved with this too. It was called DTS Headphone X.
Okay.
It's basically Atmos, but DTS is the competitor to Dolby.
Right.
So it was their version of Atmos.
Gotcha.
And our job as the engineers was to set up microphones for this super surround sound. Like, I mean, this was super surround sound. Like, we had 11 room mics.
Jeez.
It was ridiculous. It was like, I don't know why we would ever need 11, but it was like to get all the inputs and outputs,
Yeah.
just because DPA wanted to go all the way with it. So that was a challenge, trying to do that. And I learned so much from them. DPA, Gabriel is his name, the rep that was there. He was really, really knowledgeable about this stuff, probably way more than I ever was on this kind of stuff, like to the degree of technicality. And Dennis Chambers, I remember he was there, and he, we had to do some sound check, but things at the truck, power went out.
Oh, jeez.
Power went out. And I was like, oh boy, what's happening? And we were at sound check at this point. The mics were up. The artist was there, ready to do sound check. And so he didn't know that there was no power.
Right.
Right? Because you don't tell the artist that.
Never.
You just say, we'll be right back. You know, we got just something to handle. Give us like 5 minutes. You know, and then you got to count the clock. And you're just like, okay, what's happening? And it turns out that the electrician had changed the wires because he was just like, "What's this?" and just undid everything, you know? Yeah. Because he wasn't informed that we were there.
Oh, gotcha.
So he just unhooked everything. So it was just like, oh my gosh, no. So we got that running, and then the engineer of the session, it was actually Steve in this case. He had to tweak the sounds, you know, because he was ready to go. Yeah. And, you know, Dennis Chambers is a drummer. He just plays.
Yeah.
And at a certain point, I was starting to feel the tension from him. And it was just like, I remember he told me, you know, I don't do this for my health. I said, I'll get you a Coke afterwards. How's that? And he was just like, yeah, I'll get a Coke. Okay. Yeah, just keep playing, please. Then he was just like, yeah. And it's just one of those things of, you know, you just... Tragedy was avoided that day. I got another one for you. Tidal Fest in City Field.
Okay.
City Field, they had 21 Savage come in that day. And we were ready already. We had everything going. 2 minutes before it went on national television for Tidal Fest, right? This is like huge.
Yeah.
We had a whole bunch of artists there. We had Jay-Z there. We had a bunch of people. And we get outages on the fiber optic cable. If you ever work with fiber, right? It's just like it's kind of like just digital audio, but it's a very sensitive cable.
Yeah.
If it gets crimped, it's done for because it's glass.
Yes.
So we had outages, and we had to essentially find out why half the bank of inputs just went out. And so
it was 2 minutes before.
2 minutes before live. So we had to figure out what were, like, was it the pre's? Was it, you know, did we lose power? Or, you know, what's going on over here? Yeah. And we unseated the fiber, got it back in. Things turned on, but not all things. Some pre's were out. So we were like, oh my God, oh God. Okay, so we have to reroute. You know, guy at the board, he's doing digital routing. I'm plugging into different, you know, pre's. I'm saying, okay, so this isn't this isn't that, this isn't this. He's like, got it, okay, got it. All right, let's go. Literally like 10 seconds before we went on, it was finished. God. It was stressful. Very stressful. I'm getting the butterflies.
Yeah, I was
right
like
now.
Sweating right now. I was like, yeah. Woo!
Yeah.
Dude, talk about knowing your signal flow.
Talking about signal flow, man. That's what it is. Jeez. Yeah, you have to know it. Because for those situations, the things that matter, there's no excuses.
I mean, that's all you can rely on. Yeah. Signal flow. Where does one thing go to the next, you know?
Yeah.
Jeez, dude. That sounds super stressful.
Yeah. Well, you know, but at the end of the day, it's really rewarding. You know, it's just fun because that's kind of what you're there for. You're there very early in the morning. You get out late. You know, it's like a 16-hour day.
Yeah.
But at the end of it, you're just like, who did I do today? Oh, I had this artist, this artist, this artist, this artist, this artist, this artist. And it was like, it was all you. You know, you were there to make it happen.
It's worth it. Well, you can say that about the whole field of being a sound engineer, right?
Yeah.
Just like, it's a lot of struggle.
It's stress.
Yeah.
It's stress. It's why I got white hairs going.
Me too. I just noticed it like a year ago. I'm like, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah, absolutely. My sister goes like, Ken, you got like this like streak of like salt and pepper over here. I'm just like, she was like, it looks cool. I'm like, that's just stress.
Dude. No, yeah. We were talking about this on yesterday's episode. Yeah. Like, this job could take over you if you let it.
If you let it.
You know?
If you let it. It gets to people's head a lot.
Mm-hmm.
You have to understand how to manage your stress levels. You have to breathe. Yeah. You can't panic.
Yeah.
You can't panic.
Yeah.
Because when you panic, it's over. then there's nowhere to go, and you stop thinking clearly. You just have to get it done. That's the mindset.
Mm-hmm.
Just get it done. What is your plan of action when this happens, when that happens? And you know what? Nothing can really prepare you for that except experience. And that's what you were saying before.
Yeah.
Right? Being in the field.
That's
you know? That's what's going to get you there.
And that's why, people only, like you said, they care about your experience and how you handle situations.
Right. Yeah.
They don't care about degrees and papers and whatever.
Even in the film industry, the same thing.
Yes, exactly. I mean, I'm sure they help, but your experience is what you get paid for in this field, or decently paid for. I had this theory the other day, and I don't know if it's true, but I believe that most audio engineers, maybe 99%, are not paid what they deserve.
Yeah.
Dude, come on.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Of course. Look, it's part of a bigger question about how industries work and capitalism and all this stuff. But sometimes it feels like every audio engineer I know, they should be making twice as much. Yeah. I just feel like, dude, you're fucking fantastic.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, besides the top engineers.
Yeah.
Because those guys, it's like 10,000 a mix.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I'm like, I can't even compete.
10,000 a mix. That's crazy.
A mix. It's ridiculous. The highest person I knew was making $400 an hour. I was like, damn, man.
That's pretty solid.
That is freaking great.
Yeah, that's like lawyer money.
Yeah, he was mastering Kanye. It was just like,
I get it.
Yeah, you can do it. And you know what that guy said?
What?
His name was Vlado, by the way.
Yeah.
He said, your Pro Tools EQ is just as good as his Weiss.
Really? No way.
He says, never go analog. I was like, wow.
Wow. Jeez.
Wow, from the guy who's doing that, right? And he was like, don't need anything special. You just need to pay attention with your ears.
Mm.
He also said, if you're not mastering, you're masturbating. So...
I love it. I love it.
Vlad was awesome.
Oh,
he was really good. Yeah, I had so much fun. A lot of my learning, just there was good times along the way.
Yeah.
And it makes you a better person all around. You have to be aware not to lose yourself to personalities as well. Yeah. That's a huge part of this. We want to make sure that not only are we growing as people, but we're not getting sidetracked into thinking that we should be a certain type of individual too. Because your personality is really important. You need to make sure that you hold on to that. Some people lose themselves to the work, or they lose themselves to the nightlife of being in the music industry. How many rock stars have died because of drugs? It's just kind of like, it's sad. And, there's a human element to all of this that no machine could ever recreate, no matter how many times you run through Lander.
Yeah.
It's just something that you have to be really, really adamant about. That's why we have these personal relationships with these specific engineers. That's why engineers have clients.
Yeah.
Because there's a certain attribute that they bring that works for them and their client, and it's a close relationship. It's not like something like an office job.
Right.
It's a very personal thing.
Yes.
And we're here to attribute our knowledge as best as we can and allow it to play out for our artist as smoothly as they can interpret it too, and be that connecting voice to their music. Right? In this case, yeah.
Yeah, and art is a personal thing.
Yeah.
So.
Super personal, man. Art is not... It's not something we can generalize.
Yeah.
And... I find it, super interesting. Art has a weird outlook on perspective, on life, on everything that we do as technical work. At the end of the day, it still comes to the art. What does the art say? And when you look at the audience, nobody gives a shit about the EQ you fucking use.
Right.
It's all about what was said. What was the lyric?
Yeah.
What was the melody? What was the message?
Right.
And beyond that, it's what do they stand for, right? What's
Yeah.
the brand all about?
Yeah.
The whole entire perspective of that can't be understated enough. It's so important. So, but us as an engineer, that point of listening for an audience member, that's where our magic happens, where we can convey the artist's message clearly, and that's the best form of branding, because really branding is just, it's not creativity, it's clarity on what this person's all about. So take the best records that have ever been made, or the most popular records that have ever been made, and you can just see how when somebody listens to that piece of music, let's say Queen, for example, one of the most popular songs, Bohemian Rhapsody. Why does Bohemian Rhapsody become an iconic classic? Part of it was the engineer's job to translate that for Queen.
Yeah.
And so for the listener, what they experience, the panning, the stereo imaging, the low frequencies of the drum set, or the type of toms that the microphones they used to record the type of toms that they had on that drum set. All of these decisions that's what makes this industry the way it is. That's why we love doing what we do, because we do that translation work. We're really just like linguists of music, that's kind of what we are.
It's all communication.
It's all communication, man.
Literally,
that's where we got all this gear from. It's communications.
It is. Yes. Oh my god, I didn't even think about that. That's right. We were just talking about this yesterday. It's like, it's communication. It's all communication at the end of the day. What is the message?
Yeah, man.
Dude, I don't know a better way to say it. It is communication.
Yeah.
Right. What is next on the horizon? Because I know you got your big Homeric project.
Yes.
Is that the big project for the next couple of years?
Absolutely.
Yeah. You want to tell people about that?
Sure. Homeric it's an epic. Homeric is actually the word, the definition of Homeric is to be larger than, grander than, just larger than life. And just like the poet, Homer, the story that's being told is as long and as epic as he once used to do. In our own, in my own variation way of modernizing it in how I see fit. So my goal with Homeric is creating a world, a story that has a moral impact for the listener and for the observer. Mm-hmm. Something that can be a reflective journey. Right now, it's the Inferno, right? It's an adaptation of Dante's Inferno. Right. So we're going from the Inferno into Purgatory, into Paradise, and then I extend that into also the Apocalypse, because it's metal. Why not? So it's this cinematic metal journey that has its own book, its own artwork, its music, and it's really a multimedia format. So what initially started off as just a musical experiment became much bigger than that. And Homeric is just the journey of the human soul, of somebody who was damned for crimes against humanity, and learning about sin, learning about what it means to grow from that. And by the time, we get out of the Inferno into something like Purgatory, it's to also elevate and not stay put. You know, it's not enough to just get to the other side. It's also continual growth. And by the time you get to heaven, it's a form of enlightenment. It's getting that much closer to being the purest form. And the apocalypse, well, that's a little secret.
But I love this so much because I want more artists to challenge the idea of what a record can be, or what an album can be, or what a piece of media can be artistically.
Yeah.
All the like the music that I'm a fan of, like the artistic projects that I'm a fan of, it's all been people who have like questioned, like, well, why does, like, very basic example, okay, Queen. Why does a popular song have to just have like a verse chorus? Why can't we do something else?
Right.
Why don't we expand it and do something different? Or, you know, I obviously got really influenced from Metallica. So it's like, wait, why do we have to do it that way? Why don't we just do it our way? Like, I want people to challenge what it means to be an artist. And that's what I love about what you're doing with it.
Thanks, man.
Dude, it's very inspiring. I don't know how to explain it.
You know, I appreciate that, but every artist needs to go through a phase of imitation.
Yeah, of course.
That is just part of the process, because you're inspired by certain people and you end up recreating what they've done.
Yeah.
And you start to take all these little bits and pieces from all these inspirations and you start creating a palette for yourself, right? And as you grow, you start venturing out, and then you try doing things like songwriting and music theory and all these other things.
Right.
And when you develop that core part of being an artist, then it becomes not so much about the technique or all that stuff anymore. It becomes more of what you're trying to convey.
Yeah.
Now it becomes about the message, right? And to get to that point requires a lot of time and patience with yourself, and understanding that there's always still more to grow. Yeah. Like, I still find myself plateauing in certain areas that I need to develop, right? And always needing to try and find a way to, you know, expand upon that. Yeah. And for me right now, one of those is, you know, a continuous development of the studio, right? I'm in a position where my current studio is very much a mixing room, but creating a recording side of that will help me to develop my artistry tenfold. Yeah. You know, so that's part of being in this industry, is continuously trying to push for that growth. Yeah. And it's hard because you get to a brick wall sometimes where you're like, you know, if you're a guitarist, you know, and you just have a guitar and you just have an amp, and you're just like, well, I need to like put this down on paper somewhere. That's a brick wall. Yeah. Okay, so what do? You get a little handheld recorder. That's the first thing you do, and then you're just like, oh, now I want to like produce, because like I feel like I want to get better tone. And then you discover amp sims, and you discover DI box, and you discover interfaces, and you discover a whole bunch of things, a plethora of what this can become. Yeah. So you're constantly, especially as a producer, it's endless with the amount of control you have. Yeah. And that's a dangerous thing. Yeah. Because then you have so much control, do you know what to do with it? Right. Right? Of course. So that,
you're always like reflecting.
You have to.
You have to. Well,
you have to.
Yeah, that's what I love. I love artists and engineers who always reflect and question. Yeah. And be like, what's the next? Like, how do we make this even more interesting, or get a better sound?
There's that.
You know what I mean?
And you have to question who you surround yourself with. And that was one of the biggest things for me too. I had a whole band for Homeric. Yeah. I fired everybody. Including who I was living with at the time. Wow. It was his place. Yeah. I had to move out. Yeah. You know? And that was really difficult. I was depressed for like 6 months. Yeah. And then I had to pick myself up again. Yeah. You know? And it's just like, you know, you get into a situation where you can be very close with people, and you may call them brother or sister, and it's not in your best interest. It's not in your best interest, regardless of how much love you have for that person. Yeah. And so when you get out of something like that, there's a lot of clarity, and there's a lot of in Stillness of Ambition, I actually redid that entire album when I broke off from them.
Mm-hmm.
So now it's become clearer than ever what it's all about in my case. And Homeric has its own like identity.
Right.
I'm very much attached to it, but it's here. It's an ethereal thing.
Right.
And what I do is I serve this thing, which is what artists miss a lot of the time.
Yeah.
It's not here. It's here.
You're subordinate to something way higher.
It's your muse.
Yeah, yeah.
You are that. You know, what do they call it? Conduit.
Yeah.
Conduit.
Exactly.
You're a conduit to this.
Well, that's the thing, right? And I think this is one huge reason, other than time, why I don't work on too many music projects anymore.
Mm-hmm.
There's not a lot of artists that I find that have this mentality of like that the art or whatever is like a next level, almost like you said, ethereal, like, and you're kind of just touching to kind of kind of let it pass through you. A lot of, and especially when I was working here and just being around studio life and working on label sessions and stuff, it becomes very cookie cutter. Just push it out.
Yep.
And
Well,
I was burnt out by music. I almost lost my passion for music entirely.
It's like cooking in a microwave, a Hot Pocket.
Dude, no, it's not the same as getting the ingredients, and fucking...
Well, if you were to choose a pizza in a microwave or a pizza in an oven.
Exactly. Right?
The oven every day.
So,
but you know what? The oven takes longer.
Hey.
It takes longer.
True.
You have to let it bake.
Yeah.
Or sometimes you have to put it in the right oven. You have to put it in, maybe that's the people around it. It's not brick oven, or if it's stone, or what
But that's an important thing you touched on, about being surrounded by the right people.
Yeah.
Because inevitably that will affect you.
Absolutely.
It's inevitable.
It's the number one thing that holds people back. The number one thing. More than the technical, more than all of the stuff that we discussed.
Yeah.
It's you, and whether you are sabotaging yourself because of the people that you're around.
Well, how would you know how to step back and reflect on that?
Sometimes you need somebody to tell you, because you're in it. Love is blind.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
sort of thing. Sometimes you need to assess and see the pros and cons. Make a list for yourself. Why do you need this person? Why do you value this person? What are they bringing to the table that's fulfilling the goal of what this is all about? And also ask them, what is it to them, the project?
Yeah.
Because when I asked my brothers about what this was, they said, it's a brotherhood. I said, that's not what this is about. Because then that's
right.
me. That's the person. But no, it's this.
Yeah.
That they didn't understand. And that was defining. It was like paramount. And I internalized that a lot for many, many months. And years to this day, I still think about it sometimes, because it's like, it's amazing the lasting impacts, call it trauma, but it's just the lasting impacts of people. Again, this is an industry of people, right?
Yeah.
So if you don't have the right people in your circle, that will be probably the biggest catalyst to failure. Somebody smokes too much, somebody drinks too much, somebody doesn't have the right, goals.
Doesn't have their shit together.
Or doesn't have their shit together, or their goals, they could have their shit together, but they're different from your goals.
Don't align with yours, yeah.
Right.
Right.
So that's why nowadays there's a lot of rubbing with bands, and a lot of people are trying to do their own thing.
Yeah.
I noticed that.
Yeah.
Solo acts, solo projects,
albums,
and people are bringing people on board. It's hard to do the band thing.
Yeah.
Because you really need to have the same mindset,
Yeah.
and that's rare.
Yeah.
You know,
That is true. There's more solo acts now, or a band where one person is the guy.
yeah,
And the other
more projects.
Yeah, projects, exactly.
Yeah, and that's not a bad thing.
Not a bad thing. No,
it's
not
not
at
a
all.
bad thing. It
Not
just
at all.
means we're becoming more aware that we have a particular artistic goal for ourselves.
Like an individual artistic goal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And people, it's like, you know, anybody going on a pilgrimage,
Yeah.
right? You go out, you climb a mountain, you go out there to become closer to yourself or something of
Yeah.
that sort,
Yeah.
higher than what
Yeah.
you were before. Quite literally sometimes.
Yeah.
And it's just, it's this thing that most don't get.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, the biggest reason for a lot of failure.
Yeah.
You know? So, yeah, that's what I would say.
Dude,
You have to analyze.
that's a great way to bring this to a close.
Okay.
That's really good. No, that's really good. Because it really is about surrounding yourself with those right people. Because
Yeah,
it's a people industry.
Yeah.
We're all trying to communicate, get our message across.
Yeah.
What more do you want? And that's what I love about just talking to engineers, because we already know all the technical stuff. Right? We could talk about this forever. YouTube videos forever about compressors and LA2As and what. But it's like a lot of people don't see this side of the audio engineer.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I love talking to you guys about this stuff.
Thank you, man.
So I appreciate you coming on.
Oh, it's been a pleasure.
Come here, bro. Thank you. Dude, that was awesome.
I appreciate that so much.